Seahawks in the wildcard round, all after this.
Let's go get him. Let's go get him today, man. Let's go. Hey, dominate on 3. 1, 2, 3, dominate.
There we go. We got my guy Raj right up in here. How you doing, my man?
I'm good, man. What's up?
I'm doing good too. Welcome to the show. Guys, as I was saying, we got Raj up in the building. It's going to be a fun time. 49ers, Seahawks. This is going to be the wild card matchup. We just heard about it. It's going to be a fun matchup. Saturday, 1:30 p.m. Before we start, though, got to give a shout out to the guys that were in here. Sorry for the delay. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. But Raj, how you feeling about the matchup? How you feeling about the initial playoff news?
So first and foremost, Happy New Year since the New Year.
Oh, but, yeah, Happy New Year.
I'm excited, man. This is crazy. We're in the playoffs. Seattle's going to be fun. It's a rivalry game. If we beat Seattle, bigger bragging rights. If we beat them and go 3-0 against them this season, I mean, that's bragging rights. I'm excited. I do think that the Lions definitely deserve to make to the play. Man, shout out to the Lions. They didn't fold. They had nothing really to play for other than pride. And Dan got that team fighting hard. So everybody thought the Packers were going to be an easy shoe-in playing the Seattle Seahawks for the freaking wild card. I'm excited. I can't wait.
No, me too. Real quick, dude. Want to give a shout out to my my podcast co-host Marco. Unfortunately, he could not join today. He is in the hospital for something. We will discuss that when he's back on the show. But glad to see you popping back on, Marco. Thank you for tuning in. But like you said, yeah, I mean, first of all, non-49er news. Congrats to the Lions. This was a hell of a season by them. A team really projected to be one of the worst in the NFL. And they stepped up. They end the year with a winning record. One of the many teams this year that really surprised them, the New York Jets, the Miami Dolphins, the Jacksonville Jaguars. There were several teams like these that stepped up and ended up really performing this season. The Lions and Jared Goff, one of them. Shout out to Dan Campbell. Shout out to offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, who should probably get some head coaching opportunities. But because the Lions won, for those of you that don't know, the Seattle Seahawks are the team we face because the Seattle Seahawks won this weekend to the Los Angeles Rams. Because they won, they eliminated the Detroit Lions, but they needed Green Bay to lose for them to win due to conference record. Detroit ends up coming out guns blazing. They defeat the Green Bay Packers with a plethora of turnovers created, and that is how the Detroit Lions eliminated the Green Bay Packers from contention, making the Seattle Seahawks the number 7 seed. And this matchup, it's going to be Saturday, 1:30 p.m. It's going to be a very fun matchup.
It's gonna be fun, man. You couldn't really write a better wild card game. Again, I really wasn't excited. Like we always play them. I know we play Seattle a lot because they're a division game, but I just feel like the Seattle, it's a rivalry game. Their fans hate us. We hate them. Better to start the playoff run with a victory over the dreaded Seahawks. I'm excited. Geno Smith's had a great season. Last time we played him, DK Metcalf and Charvarius Mooney Ward got the best of him. He got under his skin. Dre Green, and that pass rush was just so formidable. And Nick Bosa was all over the place, and they had to use his legs. We know the kryptonite for the 49ers, or the theory is you go and you get a mobile quarterback. They can't stop it. But they, for 2 games so far this season, allowed Geno Smith be the guy that he's been against most of these other teams. So they've held him at bay. Is Pete Carroll, man. He always knows how to play the Niners no matter what. Looking something up, man. He does not want to lose a 3rd game to the Niners. And again, this is kind of a revenge game for Seattle, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be easy because I know we beat them twice already, but I think this is going to be a very tough game, man. It's playoffs and records out the window. It's going to be a battle.
Yeah, I mean, it will be a battle. Before I give my little portion on it, do want to give a little shout out to the guys that joined. Brian M. He says, I'll take Geno over facing Aaron Rodgers. We'll talk about that, the matchup between the Packers and the Seahawks. Spoiler alert, I do agree 100%. Steve-O as well, want to give you a shout out. Thank you for tuning in, as well as Michelle. Thank you all for tuning in. But when you talk about the Seattle Seahawks in this game, on paper, 49ers have a better roster. The odds makers clearly agree. It's a 10-point favorite right now, and that's why the 49ers had this game placed in the earliest time slot. It doesn't seem like the biggest matchup in the playoffs. But this is football. It is a little different. And Brock Purdy arguably had his worst game of the regular season when facing the Seattle Seahawks. Now, remember, when I talk about going back to on paper, talent-wise, it seems a little questionable how these two teams compare. The Seattle Seahawks don't have a vivid pass rush. It's really Uchenna Nwosu. That's their main guy. They got Darrell Taylor as well. Not one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. They also lost linebacker Jordan Brooks, their leading tackler, arguably their best player on defense. He's out. In the secondary, it's been all right, but they're relying on rookie corners. Tariq Woolen's one of them. Kobe Bryant's another. And they also obviously don't have Jamal Adams, who's out for the season early on. So they have a couple of missing pieces. They don't necessarily have one of the better defenses. That's been one of their Achilles heels all year. Offensively, though, they've been clicking, but they've also been limited in the two games they played the 49ers, 13 points and 7 points, only 20 combined points in the two games they face each other. Geno Smith, who has looked good in other games, hasn't looked as good when facing the 49ers. The offensive line there it's choppy because you're starting young players, you're starting rookies, Abraham Lucas and Charles Cross at the tackle position, where the 49ers have a plethora of edge rushers. So, like I said, on paper, the 49ers have this matchup. But you never count out what happens in the playoffs. There are a lot of these things, and I think the number one thing that matters is this is the third time that each team is playing each other. Things have already been put out on film. Tendencies are on film, and so it's going to matter on the physicality of each team. How can you bring it out? And that kind of revolves around coaching. That kind of revolves around the atmosphere, and that's where you bring in the record here. I like what Legendary Answer says here. You can never underestimate Pete Carroll. He's a hell of a coach, and he'll have his team ready. We beat this team twice already. Revenge for us from the postseason record. The Seahawks, they have a good record against the 49ers. This is the chance for Kyle Shanahan to continue to prove that wrong. Go 3-0, and it's a favorable matchup for them. It's the matchup that I would have preferred against the Packers, but there are some challenges that will come with it.
And one thing you said is you spoke to is the injuries of Seattle. And this is what I said. I feel like Seattle's limping into the playoffs, right? They're kind of limping in. They don't have a full sit to them for getting in, but it took a team it took the Seattle to get in. So it's like they didn't really get in, but they got in kind of thing. You know, obviously they won enough games, credit them, but they're limping in. They barely beat the Rams tonight. Like, they barely beat in shambles. They got a lot of injuries themselves. You know, their coaches on influx on, and they almost lost to the Rams. So I'm gonna sit here and say that, am I scared? I am worried due to the fact that, like Legendary Answer said, Pete Carroll down to coaching. If Kyle really is going to win a Super Bowl, he's going to have to beat Pete Carroll for the third time, because Pete Carroll has had his number over the years for the most part. Am I compared to Aaron Rodgers? I know someone mentioned that earlier. I definitely think it's a better matchup. I wouldn't want to play. It was very hot down the stretch of the season. He was kind of the Packers were one of the better teams. They, you know, other than the Niners, right? And a couple other teams, they were one of the hottest teams. So we kind of, that team was coming in scorching hot, whereas the Seattle Seahawks are not. You know, Smith is kind of cooled off from a very hot, you know, a magical start to the scene. I think we have that going for us. I think, like you said, the odds makers know the Niners are probably win this game. They should handle them, and it should be a game where the Niners come out and win fairly easy. But the playoffs, you never know. Brock Purdy's never played in the playoffs. Defense over the last 2 games hasn't been as dominating. So it's not to say that the 49ers are coming in perfect. I know they won 10 in a row, but they're not really a couple weeks. But sometimes you got to rely on, the offense with the 49ers over the last couple weeks, where usually it was the defense. So now that's good, though, because now if the offense has to step up, they can. If the defense has to step up, they can. They step up when they needed to. This week against the Raiders, the 49ers made the big plays they needed when they needed most on defense. I feel like I'm still confident the Niners can handle this game. But again, we throw records out the way, and it's a whole new season. So 10
definitely.
games in a row don't matter.
Exactly. And just to give some perspective on it, when you talk about teams playing each other 3 times, this has happened 21 times before in the NFL. 21 times since 1970 when the merger happened. And in the 21 times, the record is 14-7 for teams. But now let's break down that statistic. 14-7, that's pretty favorable for the team looking for a sweep, the 3-0 sweep. Now, the 49ers are going to play at home, as is the case with most of these games. 17 of those 21 games were at home. Of those 17 games, teams went 12-5. That's very impressive. 12-5 in those games, winning by about 6 points per game. So, statistically, if we're talking about pure statistics, it's on the 49ers side. Fate is on the 49ers side, and pretty favorably. The odds makers, like I said, they tend to favor in that way too. The 49ers are favored by 10 points, which I believe is the most of any matchup in the entire slate for this weekend. So it looks like the 49ers should come out clean. But like we're talking about, this is Pete Carroll and Kyle Shanahan. Guys, we've seen this matchup before so many times, right? Talk about 2019 in that final week. 2021, it came back again. You've seen it again and again, right? How the 49ers and the Seahawks are going to be battling. And one thing, it's very interesting that this comment comes up because I was about to bring it up. We keep getting fluked out by these rainy games. It was supposed to be a rainy game today, not a rainy game. I looked at the weather. 70% chance of rain on Saturday in the afternoon. So, raining game question mark? I'm not no weatherman, but the anticipation would be yes. Now, if the trend continues, it will not rain, but the rain adds another factor. It limits teams in the passing game and forces the run game to be a factor.
Mm-hmm.
And so that will be another thing. What I talked about early in the early part of today's show, physicality. That's where today matters. And that's why it's also imperative that the 49ers got out of today healthier or as healthy as they did. Because remember, Elijah Mitchell and Deebo Samuel proved today how they are 2 of the most powerful forces in terms of physicality on the 49ers. Mitchell barged his way in for 2 touchdowns. Deebo Samuel, although limited, got a couple of touches and worked after the catch very well. So you've got to understand now the 49ers are bringing back all these guys. But let's slow the boat there. We talked about the Seahawks injuries. We do got to talk about the 49ers injuries because there are a couple. Aaron Banks out this week with the ankle and knee sprains. It did seem, though, more favorable than expected. He had the MCL sprain, or he was reportedly having an MCL sprain, lowered down to the knee and ankle sprains, making him questionable at the moment for next week. That could be a possibility. Kevin Givens, some much needed, not much needed anymore, but some valuable defensive tackle depth. He practiced in limited fashion this week with the knee injury on Thursday and Friday. Seems like they held him out as a precaution. Should be ready for next week's game, which would be another big factor for the 49ers. Dre Greenlaw didn't practice all week with the back injury. Hopefully he's back because Dre Greenlaw has been very important overall. And so those are 3 key players that are out this week that could be back next week. So seems like it's trending up for the 49ers in the injury report. But what do you think about the impact of those 3 players?
Obviously, we talked about Seattle kind of limping in. I feel like the 49ers have relatively gone by compared to a lot of other teams. Like you said, Elijah Mitchell came back today, got the 2 touchdowns. They knocked the rust off of Deebo he came back. Aaron, although Brunskill's holding it down, it's nice to have a quality veteran that could come in. But Aaron Banks has been so good this season. He's going to be needed. We really need that left side. Him and Trent Williams have just been bulldozing. And again, running game is the can. 49ers have one of the best running games, but they needed their best lineman out there. So I really think that Aaron Banks hopefully can come back. We need him out there. Greenlaw, to me, at play, I mean, the Seattle Seahawks would be so happy if Greenlaw owns the Seahawks. We call him the Seahawk killer, right? Dre Greenlaw
he's the one that got you the one seed in 2019.
Exactly. He's had some of his best games historically against the Seahawks. This man. It's imperative that we get him. And you can tell run defense isn't the same key to the Niners defense. And when he's not out there, they're not as energetic. He is so good. I can't believe he didn't make a Pro Bowl this season, but whatever the case is, they need Dre. Kyle this week says, he held them out. They were trying to take it easy on him. If it was a playoff game, he could have. It sounds like Greenlaw will probably play this week, but it is a back issue. You got to be careful with Greenlaw in the playoffs, man. He's one of our better defenders out there. He gives his defense life. Would love to see him come back. I know he's probably coming back this week in the playoffs. We need depth, quality depth. But hey, they've had a lot of defensive linemen step in and step out, and I don't think Givens is like the biggest need out there because some of these guys like T.Y. McGill in the interior line, right? So I don't feel like he's like the biggest need, but it would be nice to have, give guys rest. But man, we need Greenlaw without a shadow of a doubt, and if we can be happy too.
Yeah. Talking about just recency bias in a way. Remember last year, we swept the Rams 2-0. There were two crucial wins, lost to them in the postseason. So remember, anything can happen. We've seen that, especially with the way the rosters are. And talking about how this game might be affected with the rain, you talked about the run game right there. I want to revert back to Week 15 when the 49ers clinched the division. Now, that was a good win. The 49ers won 21-13, although the score doesn't necessarily tell it right because the 49ers were up 21-6 up until the fourth quarter with 3 minutes left when the Seahawks scored a touchdown and then closed it out. But the Seattle Seahawks ran the ball well in that game. They ran for 70 yards only, but on 14 carries, ran for 5 yards apiece. Recently, the 49ers have struggled against top rushing attacks. I'm specifically talking about the Las Vegas Raiders, when Josh Jacobs had a good game this in Week 17. That was a part of the reason why that game was close and why Jarrett Stidham could operate the way he did, because Josh Jacobs ran the ball well. That could be one thing where you look for it. And again, it could be. It looks like it's going to be a rainy day, meaning more emphasis on running the football. Now, the Seahawks offensive line isn't very good. It's not very good, but Kenneth Walker is a good running back. And so that's where you might see a change with the Seattle Seahawks, more of a focus towards the running game. And the conditions might make it a little harder to get out to an early lead. The 49ers have also struggled sometimes with that early lead. You saw it in this game, only pulled away from the Cardinals in the second half itself. And so that early lead might not come as quick, which might allow the Seahawks to run the football more. You see where I'm going? I'm not necessarily saying the 49ers should be worried. I'm just saying this game is going to be a little different, I think, than people think. At least there's the reason for it because of what's aligned in the last few weeks. Now, Geno Smith has done a good job. The 49ers, though, have done a great job in limiting quarterbacks in the quick game, and Geno Smith will likely have to resort to that given his protection with the offensive line. But if the Seahawks can sustain a running game, that might keep them in the game longer than many expect. But the 49ers, on the flip side, they also have a powerful running game. Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell is an elite duo. That's why this week I made the bold statement of saying Elijah Mitchell's return would be the most valuable return coming back. Not Deebo Samuel, Elijah Mitchell, because the 49ers in the playoffs are going to require that physicality. Elijah Mitchell showcased today he clearly can bring it, and he also provides extra juice at the running back position, which Kyle Shanahan trusts because Elijah Mitchell can operate as a pass catcher, but also with the inside and outside zone run. It's not just a one-dimensional rushing attack, and that's nothing against J.P. Mason. Jordan Mason, who's done a phenomenal job as a backup, done very well when he's got an opportunity. It just seems like the trust is more with Mitchell, which allows for the 49ers to utilize either of their backs in their sets and creates more opportunity for their offense and keeping the entirety of the playbook there.
I agree, and I think Mitchell is a huge return. And again, he proved it today. He was a big time to his team, and I think it is because of his physicality. But unfortunately, I think that's what gets him hurt a lot. He's such and those fast runners in that zone running scheme typically get hurt. We've seen it in the past, Breida. But I think one thing you said is very true. Is Kyle trusts Elijah Mitchell, but he's an undrafted guy. He's still going up the system. Great running back, great story. We love him as the future goes. But Elijah Mitchell, they used 2 injured reserve spots on him. If they didn't believe in him, they didn't trust him, he would have said, whatever, season's done. You tore your MCL again. Like this kid. I mean, he set rookie record last year in running yards. It's Kyle's system. Like, they want this guy out there. It's just unfortunate he couldn't stay healthy in playoffs. Him and Christian McCaffrey are going to be so scary. We saw it today, lethal. And it's not just because of the game. You said it, passing game to Elijah Mitchell, could cast patches. It's a CMC. It allows them to have the threat of, okay, is Mitchell going to get the ball? No. Boom. Here in the flat or the screen pass, the guy does so much damage in those passes. And Elijah Mitchell, okay, teams have to be honest and they have to keep an eye on Mitchell if Mitchell doesn't get the other side. So that 1-2 punch is dangerous. And you're right. I think his return was bigger than Debo, but it's because they're such a power run team. They're a run first team. Yes, Debo can run the ball him out there, get him in open space, get the little, yak plays, slant plays, all that stuff. Need so they can control the ball. And I agree, man. If he can stay healthy, it's gonna be hard to beat this team. Playoffs is even bigger than running the ball in the regular season. And I agree with what you said about Walker's a great running back. If he can stay healthy, because he's been banged up this season, he's good. And the thing that the Niners have struggled against is good running back. In a game, they ran the ball effectively on us. That's why we couldn't beat them. And it allowed Mariota. Look, they were running the ball, and then Mariota was able to take off just like Stidham did last week. Allow Seattle to run the ball. Geno Smith is going to be able to run the ball on his point blank period. We got to stop the run, and that's going to be a lot of running next week if it is definitely raining. Which, like you said, 70 is going to be a rainy day, and running the ball is key in those games. And but hey, you never know. You never know.
Yeah, no.
So we'll see. But he's running the ball.
Go ahead.
Kevin Givens back, so that gives us another interior lineman, which is a run defense. So I feel all the signs are kind of pointing to the Niners having the edge. They're the better team, number 2 seed. But again, you can't count out Seattle because they are a division foe. You throw records out the window on rivalry games.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, when you talk about Seattle, when you go for it, I think that the 49ers, right, when you look at the statistics, we talk specifically about running. Seattle has done well in the running game recently. And I mean, this entire year, Seattle actually, when you think about it, is better than you'd expect in the running game. Seattle rushes for 4.7 yards per carry. That ranks 7th in the NFL. They're actually right with the 49ers at 7th in the NFL with 4.6 yards per carry. But the main factor is defense, right? The 49ers, Seattle, they're both strong rushing offenses, but main factor defensively, the 49ers allow just 3.4 yards per carry. That's been sustained for almost the entirety of the year. Seattle's one of the worst teams in rush defense. They allow 4.8 yards per carry. I think it's 28th in the NFL. And then they allow 150 yards on the ground per game, 30th in the NFL. The 49ers obviously being the second best rush defense in the NFL, 78.8, just 1 yard behind the Tennessee Titans. So there's a huge disparity in the defense. That's why the odds are a 10-point favorite, because one team clearly is a better run defense than the other. One team should be able to run over the other. And that was the case in week 15 as well. The 49ers had 170 rushing yards in week 15, and they did it on 5 yards per carry. They were being able to do it. And so overall, I think that the 49ers right now have the favor, are the favorite with the weather conditions, because of the way that they're able to not only stop the run, but also work with the run, and they have the reinforcements coming back. So it's a good sign on both sides for the 49ers.
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, it all comes down to running the ball. And playoff football, it's tough. You got to be able to turnovers, and that's what the Niners do. They force turnovers. We know how good they are. They got that strip sack today. Like they've done that a few times this season. 49ers are very opportunistic. It's going to be the key. They have to be able to force turnovers. And then on the flip side, they have to limit turnovers, and a really good job of that over the last couple of weeks with Brock Purdy at quarterback. That's one thing that really has stood out. Exactly the numbers in terms of turnover differential since he's taken over. But it feels like they have very good turnover differential. Like I rarely see Brock make a mistake, and when he does, it's like and when he does make a mistake, they come right back off of it, and they've been able to bounce. But again, it's playoffs. We'll see how he does in the playoffs. And same thing with Geno Smith. If Geno was during most of the season, where he was he was a Pro Bowl quarterback, right? Is he pass rush going to get to him? And then same thing with Brock is he has to be able to continue his touchdowns, limiting turnovers, being poised in the pocket. He's been a very poised quarterback. Also, different teams are going to throw the kitchen sink at you. I know Pete Carroll's going to probably throw a lot of pressure at to a young quarterback. They have all the film over the last couple of weeks. Teams make a game plan against them. And then too, with Aaron Banks out, is that going to be an impact? Obviously on for the last couple of weeks, but I think Aaron Banks is needed for that, because I feel like the Niners did get off to a J.J. Watt last game of his career. He was going to go out with the bang. So he was playing. I feel like he got the best of the 49ers O-line early on. But I also feel like it's been helpful to counter that. But again, those are things that we have to worry about in the playoffs. The guy he was in the regular season. 13 touchdowns as a rookie quarterback. He set the 49 record. He played 6 games. That's crazy to me. Like, this guy was out there throwing 2 touchdowns a game. Heard of for 49ers quarterbacks over the last couple of years, man. Can he keep it up? I hope so. And the guy's target on Brock Purdy's back. But I think this kid has it, man. I don't know. I feel like he's going to be able and do the damn thing. But again, it's going to be a test for him. See?
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. And I'm very interested to see how Brock Purdy plays. I talked about the statistics for teams looking for sweep, right? How teams normally are favored when they're looking for the sweep, especially at home. But we've also got to talk about another playoff statistic, and that is first-year quarterbacks in the NFL. While that one, the one I said favors the 49ers, this one does not. Quarterbacks in their first career playoffs are 26-44. 26-44. That's a 37% chance that they make it, or they get at least one win. And remember, some of these quarterbacks got multiple wins. When you look at it, it's going to be teams. When you look at it, teams that have won it, there's only been one team that has won it all with the rookie quarterback. That was Tom Brady in 2002 with the New England Patriots. Joe Burrow was not a rookie, but a first-year quarterback. Joe Burrow was a first-year quarterback. He made it to the Super Bowl last year, didn't do it. Brock Purdy, the odds are against him, but we've seen good things. We've seen some bad things, but we've seen good things over the last, 6-7 games from Brock Purdy. It's been 6-7 games now since the Miami Dolphins game. We've seen Brock Purdy do some good things, some things that we haven't seen from other quarterbacks. And the main thing we've seen a quarterback who seems comfortable in the system, seems like he can execute within the system, which is exactly what you need in a Kyle Shanahan offense from that position in order for the offense to thrive. Now, Purdy tries to do too much sometimes. We saw it today in his 17-yard sack where the 49ers ended up having to punt on a 4th and 29. That's true. But there's also the good parts about Purdy. I've explained it over the past couple of weeks. That's a huge part about it. So, odds are against him, but we've also seen optimism. And the number one thing when we have to realize with this 49ers roster, yes, quarterback is important, but 49ers have also proven quarterback isn't necessarily that important. It's the team around you. And the 49ers supplanted their team with a ton of skill position players, right? Deebo Samuel extended, Brandon Ayuk kept, Christian McCaffrey. You then have Elijah Mitchell, Ray McLeod, who has blossomed into a good role player over the last couple of, really the second half of the year. Then Jawan Jennings, a guy who can convert into first downs. So there's a whole lot of players. And that kind of leads me to this hypothetical that I see from one fan. Unfortunately, calls himself Sad Niner fan. But if Eli Mitchell never got hurt, do you think we still trade for Christian McCaffrey? What is your thoughts? Because this is actually one, I saw a very similar question on the timeline. I think it's a very interesting question. What do you think about this?
I still think they were going to make that trade regardless if they had Mitchell or not. I mean, the sense I get, because John Lynch, when they've talked about it ad nauseum, you could guy for a long time. And I think with the Panthers at the time, it was kind of like a perfect storm. They played the Panthers, talks with their GM and say, hey, look, is CMC on the table? And I honestly think whether he was going to trade for CMC, because I still think the Niners felt like they still were missing a piece, like a little bit more in the offense, regardless if Mitchell was back. I really still think they make again, back to like 2019, right? You had the Niners, they knew they were still missing some Daniel Sanders, and I feel like the Niners knew like this offense, it was still stalling. Like the offense was stalling. Even if they had Mitchell, I think they still would have sputtered a little bit out the gates. And I think the Niners were all in this year. Playoff, Super Bowl mode, I think they would have made the move. I feel like they see for a long time. And I think this year the opportunity presented itself. And they and I think too, I think they saw over the years, some teams do get aggressive. And the Niners are that team not aggressive enough. And they say, hey, look, we can do it too. And really, I feel like that's kind of a mirage. Like people say that the Niners aren't aggressive, but they do make a lot of moves that people don't give him credit for. And he's really figured it out over the last couple of years. Like, he's gotten better as a GM. I think he's as executive. I mean, look what he did. The offseason was crazy. He went and revamped the special teams. Odom, Ray McLeod, half the season became a really big impact part of their team, not just on special teams, but on offense. Special teams guy, but he was a good fill-in player because they did have some linebacker injuries this year. So they did finish. They did really help the special team. That was one of the most money signings that they could have made. Preseason, Jimmy, they were in a pinch. They needed a veteran safety. They go and take a 30K. Tashawn Gibson has been a revelation, underrated this season. So that was a move. Mooney Ward this offseason. We've been screaming for cornerbacks. This guy's been so good this year. And then you go and get the CMC trade. I think that was the move that they've been. I think that might have been even I think they really wanted a guy like that, and they finally made it happen. So I think yes, they would have made the move.
I'm conflicted on this one because if Elijah Mitchell never got hurt, the 49ers were a better team than 3-3 at that time. And now there's a lot of factors going into it. Remember, the 49ers were, I think it was 8-1 or 7-1 or something like that, or 8-0 at the trade deadline in 2019 when they made the move for Emmanuel Sanders. Now that was a much smaller move in terms of draft compensation, only a third and a fifth because Sanders was on an expiring contract.
Yeah.
But I think the McCaffrey trade, I think you can make an argument for yes and no. Yes, because I don't know if they make the magnitude of the move. Sorry, no, because I don't know if they make the magnitude of the move if they are 5-1, because they don't have as many holes that they need to fill. And Mitchell has been healthy for that portion of the year while sustaining on significant volume. But yes, because Kyle Shanahan has talked about at length how much of how much he admires McCaffrey's game, how valuable he believes McCaffrey is, and it really shows in the utilization of McCaffrey. And this is the first time that McCaffrey has gotten healthy and at a price that San Francisco could afford. And so those factors combined, you could make the argument that he could, because this is not only an investment for 2022, this was an investment for 2023 and beyond, because McCaffrey has 3 more years of his contract at a team-friendly deal because there's no more guaranteed money on the deal. And so I think there's a lot of factors into it. But regardless, the way that I think about it, McCaffrey's on the team now. Sometimes it's just the way the NFL season goes, right? It's really unfortunate that Elijah Mitchell got hurt. It's really unfortunate that Trey Lance got hurt. It's really unfortunate that Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt. But you see the adversity the 49ers have gone through with the series of moves, coming 3-4 to 13-4. I don't know if any other team in the NFL has ever done that. And so it's crazy to see not only how guys like Christian McCaffrey have elevated the offense, but guys like Brock Purdy have elevated the offense and things like that. And everybody kind of blossoming into their own role. Brandon Ayuk certifying himself as a potential wide receiver 1. George Kittle really getting back into the offense, the element of the offense, with 11 touchdowns this year, something he's never had in his career. Everybody's solidifying back into their role. And that's the really good part about this. And so that's why I mean, it is exciting to talk about the 49ers and what the moves they've made. And you talk about the other moves. I saw a comment about Jordan Willis. Remember, the 49ers traded for Jordan Willis, I believe, for like a 6th or a 7th round pick at the time in 2020. He's been a vital part in key moments over the past 2 years. A nice strip sack today. He's a guy that just plays well and is a good special teamer when you need a play to be made. He's made that play, and that's a good thing. I mean, but Jordan Willis is just one guy. You talk about Charles Omenihu, a guy who has been really, when you look at the statistics, a top 10 pass rusher in 2022. What do I mean by that? Look at the pass rush win rate of every pass rusher in the NFL with a certain amount of stacks, whatever makes you qualified. Charles Omenihu is up there. He's ninth. He was ninth prior to this game, or prior to the last 2 games, in pass rush win rate in the entire NFL. And remember, there are, 4 pass rushers that can reach that marking on every single team. 9th out of 120 is pretty darn good. Up there with Nick Bosa this year. Yeah, Charles Omenihu has done his job. That's another guy you got for a 6th round pick, and a guy who you got for a 6th round pick with multiple years of team control. Another strong move. You talked about Charvarius Ward. I really like the signing of Charvarius Ward. I thought it was a great signing with the 3-year deal, with the way the contract was at the time, and he's just done what he's done. A lot of different moves. Ray-Ray McCloud has been a nice addition. George Odom has contributed on special teams. Everybody has. It's really just nice to see what John Lynch has done with this team. And that's why a lot of people have said he's in the running for GM of the year. A good roster by the 49ers, a good compilation. And remember, this is them having to adjust by having Jimmy Garoppolo's, how much ever it'll be, $13 million or whatever, cap hit on the books as well, which they did not anticipate until the last days of the roster cutdown.
It's been a wild season, man. Because, I mean, the offseason was QB talk. Oh my God, Trey expected Jimmy gone, and then boom, the shocker. They kept restructuring the contract. So okay, QB2, Trey goes down, Jimmy comes in. Oh, we get CMC. Like, it's been crazy, but at the same time, John Lynch has kept this team afloat. Like, this is the team, like you said, adversity. It's a team that they've weathered the storm. So if any man up is usually able to come in and play just as good, or maybe sometimes even better. It's great. Better than any quarterback they've had this season. Like, Trey goes down, Jimmy goes down, and Brock, like, he's the guy. And then like you said, like, there's so many different players to step up. Jordan Willis, flyer, they got him for nothing. And he's been a very underrated player. To Sean Gibson, like I said, players, they get these rookies too. They come in when they have to play. You got Spencer Burford, started the whole year at right guard, and he's played very solid. You know, obviously a rookie's going to make mistakes here and there while he's learning. So, I mean, this team, man, they got so many unsung heroes, a lot of underrated. The next guy comes in and they make a big play. It's crazy, man. And then you got a 7th round guy like Jordan Down Hero, and you know, you could sit here and go through the top to bottom of this whole roster, and that's what this team's about. It's a great squad, 53 players, and then some, all elevated. They make big plays, like we talked about T.Y. McGill. like just guys that come out and know big plays, man. And Kinlaw was hurt most of the season. Armstead was hurt for a long time, and wasn't meant to, like you said. Samson Ebicam, he set his career high in sacks this year, 5.5 season. That was his goal, is to break 4.5 sacks, which he always had, and he did it today. He got a sack of the year. So it wasn't just the stars, Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. Obviously, we remember them stars, but there's so many underrated, unsung players. It's crazy to me. So with all that being said, going into the Seattle game, I just feel like this team has too much momentum. There's too much adversity that they fought through for them to take a loss in the wild card. So I think it's going to beat the 49ers in the playoffs. And I don't know if Seattle has enough. It'll be a fun game.
Yeah. And I don't like looking ahead too much, but one thing I got to say, a lot of people were worried about being the number 2 seed because you'd have to face the Packers, the red hot Packers, who are going to be on a 5-game winning streak. One of the hotter teams like the 49ers coming into the playoffs. That's not something you want to face. Now, instead of facing the Packers, like we said, the 49ers are facing the Seattle Seahawks, third game. But a potential playoff path to the NFC Championship game, now instead of involving potentially the Packers and one of the NFC East teams, it involves the Seattle Seahawks and then potentially the Minnesota Vikings. So it's a much different path now for the 49ers. And remember, both of those games would be at home as opposed to being the 3 seed. I think that that's a favorable schedule compared to other schedules. Instead of having to face the Cowboys or the Buccaneers potentially or the Eagles in one of the first 2 rounds, you now face those 2 teams likely and in order to get to the NFC Championship game, both at home and where you've been able to really face immense success thus far. It's a good part. It's a good thing for the 49ers. And in my opinion, while I'm not undermining either of those teams and understand that both those teams could beat the 49ers, I think it's good playoff experience for Brock Purdy in those 2 games because you're not going to be asked to do too much, but you also get the playoff atmosphere under your belt in order for a potential NFC Championship game or whatever it may be.
Yeah, 100%. Like all obviously these games, the playoff games, they were kind of like playoff atmosphere games. There were some big games, Tampa Bay, Miami game, Seattle. Those were big time matchups, and Brock had to play tough. So I tested in those games, but you're right. In these games coming up before the NFC Championship game, he's gonna get tested. So yeah, I think it's a good path. Obviously, there are 2 teams that I think the Niners can pretty handedly if they play to their game and execute well. 2 home games, and that's another key is before the NFC Championship game. As long as they win, whatever, are going to be home games. See, the Niner fans travel anywhere. They'd go anywhere, wherever it is. But the fact that it's in Levi, it just adds another element. Like the home field advantage is huge. He goes, yo, faithful, we need you there. We need you there. You guys have really helped us. That a difference maker. You see how loud they get on the road. But at home, I've been to a few home games. It's just they take over the stadium. It's crazy. It's tough for an opposing team at Levi Stadium. 8-1. That's a pretty good record, man. So it's Niners at home. So I feel like they have a good favorable matchup. The number 2 seed, I think, they're going to have to again see most likely Minnesota. I think the Niners can beat both of them. Get their way into the NFC Championship game. And by that point, who's banged up, who's who's hurt. Hopefully, the Niners can stay healthy. Stay healthy throughout these playoffs. They dodged some bullets over the last couple of weeks. The Debo injury, I thought that, but he was today. So we got him back. Again, I think they took the brunt of their injury, and let's knock on wood that they stay healthy moving forward. Because right now, I feel like most of their players back. We talked about it. Banks and Greenlaw. Let's hope they come icing on the cake. So I feel like the Niners are in good position moving forward, and I'm excited, man. I'm so excited. So we'll see what happens.
No, definitely, definitely. Real quick, want to address this comment from a boogie. Kyle Shanahan's best coaching year. I think you do have to say so. I know Raj agrees with me because
Yeah.
of the circumstances that you face and the 10-game winning streak. 13-3 back in what was it? Back in 2019 was impressive for sure because of the way that you turned it around. I think that those are the two competitive years because you went from 4-12 to 13-3 in one off season.
Mm-hmm.
But this one as well, with the circumstances that you faced, equally as impressive, if not more impressive, which is why Kyle Shanahan is a top 3 or top 4 candidate for Coach of the Year, depending on how you view it. I think he's top 3. I don't know if Dan Campbell will earn any consideration or earn much consideration given that he didn't make the playoffs, but I do think that it's been a hell of a year for Kyle Shanahan. And I think, yeah, I think that that's it's been a fun year for him and a good way for him now to experience some adversity of himself because he's been successful when going to the playoffs. I think he's 4-2. And so now you're going with the third string quarterback. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, 100%. I think Kyle and I got to give him credit because, I've been critical of, losing some big games here and there. You're like, okay, is it the head coach, this and that? But a hell of a job. I definitely think it's his best season. I know 19, we got to the Super Bowl. They were 3-4 on October 23rd. They've won 10 in a row. They're 13-4, number 1 seed in the NFC West. They won the NFC West outright, 6-0. The first time they were undefeated since 1997, and they did it with their third quarterback, not their first string. And a lot of teams string, and it's like, okay, oh God, are they going to be able to win games? By the time you get to your third string quarterback, they got better with their third string quarterback, and they finished the season, like I said, undefeated in the NFC. You got to give this man a lot of credit for keeping them afloat. I definitely think he should be a top candidate year. I think it's going to come down to 3 guys: Brian Daboll, because he took the Giants to the playoffs. Yeah. Analyze him for just folding this week. I know it wasn't a meaningful game, but hey, look at Dan Campbell for him in terms of making the playoffs, and he fought tooth and nail, and he played with pride to take out the other guy. I think Doug Peterson. He took the Jaguars to the playoffs last season.
Correct.
Trevor Lawrence looked like he was going to be a bust, and Doug Peterson turned this man into the franchise quarterback. I know they had a spending spree. They went crazy, but you still have to coach that talent up, and it'd be terrible. This team was, that they won the AFC South, and so I think it's gonna be Doug Peterson, but I feel like Kyle Shanahan definitely should be top 2. It's probably gonna be top 3. Daboll definitely gets some. He took the Giants with no wide receiver. They got plumbers for wide receivers out there, for God's sake. And shout out to Brian Daboll, man. He changed the culture over there. Same thing with Doug Peterson. I feel that might kind of count against Shanahan. Is this team was expected to be a good team? They're stacked. Like, they got some of the best players. So even though they're on their third quarterback, you still got Debo, you still got CMC, you got Fred Warner, Green. Like, you got so many stars on this team and the third string quarterback. But it is your third string quarterback. The last quarterback, the last player. We'll see.
Yeah, no, definitely. And really, it's going to be a fun matchup on Saturday. I'm going to be there. Raj, we'll see if you come out. We'll see. But I'm going to be there. So, okay, yeah. So we'll see each other. Guys in the guys in the chat. If you guys are going to be there, yeah, come reach out on Twitter, and we can link up. So be sure to if you are going, be sure to drop it down in the chat. Let us know and hit us up on Twitter as well. So that's going to be a fun game. But Raj, I think this is a good point to end today's show. It's been a fun 50 minutes talking to you about the 49ers because this is going to be a fun matchup on Saturday. Another playoff matchup for the 49ers. What is this? The third time now that Kyle Shanahan has gone there in his tenure here with the 49ers, potential coach of the year. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Everybody in the chat today, the chat was popping. We really appreciate over here. And Raj, thank you as well for being my co-host. For those of you guys, Yeah, for those of you guys that want the content, be sure to tune in. Be sure to subscribe to both of our channels. Link is in the description. So be sure to tune in and subscribe to both of our channels because we will be back soon with some more content.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, man. I can't wait to the game. I'll see you Saturday, my boy.
Yes, sir. Let's do it. All right. Take care, guys.